volunteering, and nonprofit work from those who know it well. You'll also hear why these four individuals accomplish their work better than any others. But before we begin our program, I have a few short announcements. First, for the benefit of those in the room and our radio and television audiences, please turn off your cell phones, electronic devices, and other devices that tend to beep and break into song. We're pleased to have 4 Friday Forum corporate sponsors today, and without their generous financial support, these time-honored Friday Forums would not be possible. Our corporate sponsors from this quarter are 3 Mile Canyon Farms, the law firm of Barron Liebman, LLP, AARP Oregon, and Comcast. And we have today several key people representing Comcast who are down in the audience. Please stand. Theresa Davis, Rebecca Brown, and Katie Maloney. Let's thank all our corporate sponsors. There'll be no Friday Forum next week due to the Thanksgiving holiday, but our first 2 December Friday Forums will feature distinguished speakers. First, on December 5th, Congressman Earl Blumenauer, and the next week, Portland State University new president, Wim Wiewel, on December 12th. And now on to our program. Each week, when we state that the City Club of Portland is Oregon's premier citizens forum, we back up this assertion. Those of you who have attended or listened on the radio or television to our candidate forums or the ballot measure debates before the election understand this. The same is true for those of you who will hear the governor, the new mayor, and other key public elected officials speak on their jurisdictions after the first of the year. But in my opinion, today is one of our most important forums of the year. That's because we're going to meet and hear from heroes. These young people are heroes. And before I introduce today's speaker, I would like to welcome 4 very special guests. Since 2004, the Skidmore Prizes have honored exceptional leaders under 35 years of age and who earn less than $35,000 annually. These generous prizes are due, and we thank a collaboration between 3 wonderful organizations, Willamette Week, Momentum Market Intelligence, and Oak Tree Digital. Let's give them a hand. City Club is honored to have hosted the 2008 Skidmore Prize ceremony, which took place right before this program today. And we're delighted to have with us the Skidmore Prize winners who are with me on the stage. City Club offers its sincere congratulations to the following: Amy Harwood, Program Director for Forest Watch Agency, BARC. Polly Bangs, and Polly is the founder of Urban Opportunities, which helps at-risk youth land jobs. Katy Kolker, Executive Director of the Portland Fruit Tree Project, and they harvest unwanted fruit from local trees to feed family in need. And Rodolfo Serna, a transition specialist at PAIR. PAIR is a youth homelessness resource center. And City Club is delighted to offer 1-year complimentary members to all the Skidmore Prize winners. Congratulations to each of you, and we look forward to hearing more about you and the work you accomplish at today's forum. I'm now pleased to introduce today's guest speaker, Mark Holloway. Mark has an exceedingly diverse professional background, and when I say diverse, I would suggest that anybody who has been a prison chaplain and managed political campaigns in his home state of Louisiana has a diverse occupational background. Mark also taught school both in the United States and Chile. All of his jobs are tied together by an ardent dedication to altruistic work. In fact, before moving to Oregon, Mark lived in New York, where in one job he recruited more than 60 international corporations to join in the fight to defeat malaria, HIV, AIDS, and other global killers. He has a bachelor's degree in public relations from Loyola University, and then went on to graduate school at Notre Dame, where he received dual degrees, an MBA, and a master's in theology. Again, an example of a diverse education, although when I talked to him yesterday, he refused to comment on the Notre Dame football team. Venture Partners, Mark is now the executive director of Social Venture Partners Portland. It's a venture philanthropy foundation that matches accomplished individuals with promising nonprofit organizations, and they have a great partnership. By donating both money and professional knowledge, these individuals help the nonprofit organizations maximize their impact on our community. In addition to sharing his own expertise, Mark is going to be talking with our Skidmore Prize winners so that we can learn more about them. We're extremely pleased to have Mark with us today, and please join me in welcoming Mark Holloway.
Well, thanks, Don, and thanks to the City Club and Willamette Week for inviting me today. It's a real special privilege for me. You don't have many prison chaplains that get to come up and speak, I guess. But that's from a background that I have in being both a seminarian and an MBA from Notre Dame, and I have to say only at Notre Dame would that happen, really. The title today of Stories of Inspiration and Transformation and Giving Back has been a little challenging this week, honestly. The news gods have been a little against me out there with the market news and the economy. It's been a little tough to come up with this. So just know that I've worked really hard to kind of come up with inspiration and transformation. And at the very least, it's stories of aspiration and perspiration because I worked hard enough at it. I do hope to leave you today with a little bit of sort of provocative thoughts and inspirations that allow you to sort of break through some of that news and learn some of the stories of these people. I'd like to talk a little bit about my own inspiration for being where I am today, and a little information about my organization, Social Venture Partners, and movements in philanthropy and volunteerism right now. On that note, you know, my inspiration for being here comes from my dad. My dad's an amazing man. He grew up in a small town in Louisiana, only 500 people in our town, built on the timber industry many years ago, not unlike sort of Prospect, Oregon, if anybody's familiar with that out here. I looked it up and said, what's like Forest Hill? Forest Hill, Louisiana is a very poor community, and my dad came up from a very poor family. He graduated from high school, like his brothers and sisters, because my grandfather was bound and determined that they would. But the opportunities weren't very plentiful there. So he went out to work for the airline industry. Years later, decided he wanted to start his own business. So he went out and cut people's hedges and stuck them in bean cans that he collected from the local army base and started his own nursery business, literally from the ground up, we like to say. Life transformed for our family, though, in 1980 when a federal judge decided to close the local school in our town. And if you know small towns, you know that elementary schools are the heart of those small towns. My dad and other leaders in that town decided they wouldn't take it. They were going to stand up against these federal judges and attorneys and others who were coming after them. And they really did that. I'll never forget the image of my dad standing on the back of a pickup truck one day with a crowd of people around. He stood up and he rallied the crowd to this great movement. And those parents, all barely high school educated, some of them, very few college degrees among them, decided they would teach all of the kids. They would take over that school themselves and teach the kids. And it became like a massive homeschool. until federal marshals moved in and said that they decided that was not going to happen and threatened to arrest the parents. They filed suit against the government and lost. My dad went to talk to the congressman who refused to help him. And what did my dad do instead of saying, well, all right, we're just humble folks back home and we'll do our thing and go on our way? He said, I'm going to run against you. And pretty extraordinary for a man from a very small town, a high school education, to run against one of the famed Long family in Louisiana, if you're familiar with Huey Long and those folks. Unfortunately, he lost badly in that race. But 3 years later, that congressman suddenly died, and my dad ran again, thinking, well, this is a good opportunity. And wasn't quite that crass, I suppose. And he ran again and lost again. But on his third try, my dad got out there, and I swear he must have shook hands with everybody in that district, because he won by 0.6 of a percentage point as a Republican in a district that was 92% Democrat, because he got out there and he shared his message with people, and he shared the dream that he had for our country and for our family. And I've always looked to my dad as a real model for service, of a man who really came from humble beginnings and made a difference. And when he was in Washington, sometimes he likes to say the difference he made was just making friends with the guys in the garage, more so than making friends with the congressman up there. But he really did make a difference, and he has inspired me to give back in my own life. And the inspirations are many for me in this world. I'm inspired by the work that St. Jude Hospital does in Memphis, Tennessee, and I'm inspired by Sam Adams and Harvey Milk. I'm inspired by my dog. I'm going to get choked up about my dog. Sorry. My dog, who's just so loving and so present just every minute of the day. And I really had an amazing privilege this week to spend time with these four people, just spend an hour and be completely inspired by the work that they do and the energy that they bring to our world. And they're a good testament to that the paths are many in inspiration. You heard a little bit about Rodolfo, but what you didn't hear is that what I heard was that he was inspired by his circumstance, growing up in a really tough neighborhood in Chicago, in a tough family, and going to live in the boys' home in Chicago. One day, one Thanksgiving, Rodolfo told me he was sort of pondering, do I stay here at the boys' home? He didn't feel right, and he didn't want to go back home, so he sort of walked the streets a little bit and to see what would come. And he stumbled across a soup kitchen. And he'd never known much about a soup kitchen, that they existed. So he walked in and said, what do you do? And so they told him they were serving meals for Thanksgiving to the homeless. And he didn't ask for a meal, he asked to help. Rodolfo was inspired by the humility of his own situation, that many people were so much worse off. Katy was inspired by two trends colliding. The trend toward organic food that we're all so excited about, local organic food, how wonderful, and the trend toward inequality in food access, and how the poor folks couldn't access the very fruit that was all around us, and wanted to do something about that. Amy was inspired on a hike in Mount Hood to do the work she's been doing all these years, the beauty of our earth, and Polly by the real connection she has with youth and the skills she has there. It really is amazing that inspiration can come from all directions. We can be inspired by philosophy or faith, the loving kindness of the Buddha, or events like the moon landing or Senator Obama's election, even the death of a loved one sometime, or ideas and knowledge. Inspiration really does come from everywhere. I work in an amazing sector where inspiration is plentiful and evident everywhere you look. In this country, I just learned the total number of nonprofit organizations is 1.1 million in this country. And while some people, and I hear it often, is that they think they're too many. You know, everybody's starting a nonprofit organization. And that may be true, but you know, every single one of those serves a need. Every one of those have a dream behind it to really give back to this world and to meet the needs of people out there who really are calling out. And in fact, the nonprofit sector in this country contributes $800 billion to our economy. $800 billion. That's the gross national product, by the way, of Australia, the third largest, the third most important sector in our economy. And importantly, it brings 60 million people into volunteerism in this country. 60 million people. We in Portland are actually the forefront of that volunteerism, and you may know that we were just named the third of the major cities in America. We were the third in volunteerism. We have 567,000 people in Portland, the Portland area, who are volunteering day in and day out. That's actually the entire population of Portland, but I'm guessing a few people in Beaverton and Hillsborough and Vancouver are probably volunteering as well. And the value of those volunteer hours is actually $1.4 billion that's aiding nonprofits here in the local area. The exciting thing is that in the United States, 1 million people were brought into volunteerism in the last 5 years. And it's extraordinary. It really is extraordinary. And as a Southerner, Don mentioned I'm from Louisiana. I kind of noted that the South has the lowest amount of volunteerism. So I'm guessing they don't count, the little old ladies making pies and bringing them to your neighbors as volunteerism. But we are seizing on things here in Portland. The other thing that's exciting in addition to the growth is that people want something different in their volunteerism. They're getting out there because they like the idea of writing a check. It feels really good to put in an envelope and say you made a difference and get that tax write-off. But people want to do more. They want a more holistic experience. And I'm going to say a little bit about my own organization in that trend. But people are inspired and are giving. And at this important time in our economy, and as we read the news, we need to know that economists have told us that in the last 40 years, giving has increased every single year, bar one, and that was an anomaly in 1987 because of public policy. Every single year, despite wars, despite gas shortages, despite Nixon's resignation, despite slowdowns, despite recessions, and we've had them in the last 40 years, giving has gone up every single year. But one. It's not, the economists tell us giving is not directly correlated to the downturns in the market or the negative news. And the economists won't tell us, but I know it is correlated to a real sense among Americans that we are people who give back. No doubt people are inspired, and our country is the most philanthropic country on the planet by far. So what inspires you? I'm going to drive the radio producers crazy here for a minute because I'm going to just have 10 seconds where I'm going to be quiet, and I want you to think about your own inspirations. Maybe it was earlier today, maybe it was last week, or what's inspired you in your life. So hopefully you have something in mind. So how do we give birth to our inspirations? How do we give them life? I think inspirations are like little newborn babies. They're sort of new and vulnerable, and you're not really sure what they're going to look like when they kind of come out. And maybe they're a little ugly at first. Sorry, parents. And they need tenderness and gentleness. We need to be gentle with our inspirations because they really do feed us, and we need to feed them, and we need to care for them and give them the kind of nurturing things. The economy is certainly news we should read, but how do we empower our inspirations and be positive? How do we set them out and let them take the first few steps and maybe fall and get back up again? I'm here today speaking on behalf of Social Venture Partners because someone years ago gave birth to a great idea that seized on this trend of wanting to do more, of wanting to do more than just write a check for an organization or volunteer or give your expertise at times. The idea is, why not be gardeners in the world? Rather than take what comes to us, why not be gardeners in the world of cultivating good ideas and community solutions? This is a trend across all generations that people want to do more. Social Venture Partners is a group of, I like to say, kindred spirits, people who really want more in their lives and want more for the community. They want to give of their resources. We make lasting investments in our community, cultivating the ground, as I said, as gardeners, finding those organizations or opportunities and seeding those with really good energy, nurturing those with the expertise and the time that our partners bring. You may be an expert in financial management, you may be a person who's excellent at marketing, or you may have an interest in growing into organizational development. But we have an opportunity as Social Venture Partners to go and work with an organization hands-on and help that seed to grow into a really amazing plant, pruning at times, but nurturing and feeding, so that the community as a whole may harvest the good works of that organization. It's called venture philanthropy because it's an idea that was brought from the for-profit sector of venture capitalism, of finding those good opportunities and helping them grow so that they pay off for everyone else. We don't earn money on our investments. We earn good works for the community. We earn, hopefully, solutions to real community needs. So what do I mean? What's an example? We helped to start years ago, we were inspired by and helped to start an organization called Cash Oregon that was really started as a kind of discussion group and some activity by AARP, who's a sponsor here today, but they have a tax aid group that was out doing taxes. The real inspiration was that working folks in our community are eligible for an earned income tax credit by the government. It's been around for years, and the IRS could tell our partners that $21 million was not going to the pockets of folks here in our community who needed it. It was sitting in government coffers in Washington. And our partners said, wow, $21 million, how do we get that? They got out there and started working on it. Someone was inspired another partner, who inspired another partner, and we took this on as an investment. Today, a man named Bruce Murray manages this investment for us. He's our lead partner. He's a retired banker, wheeler and dealer, many years ago, I'm sure, wheeling and dealing now for a little organization called Cash Oregon, doing things like grant writing and crunching the numbers and helping do strategic planning. And he's joined in that by Sue McGrath, who's a local wealth management firm owner, who runs the books, and Scott Collins, who's from the healthcare industry, who helps to pilot a financial literacy program. They're nurturing and caring for and pruning and growing that organization. And last year, that organization did 16,000 returns here locally and delivered $16 million back to this community through refunds and tax credits, through the work of our partners and many others that came together. Another good example is a small organization called the Shadow Project. The Shadow Project was really started and inspired by Christy Scattarella, who's an amazing mom that wanted to transform the school experience for learning disabled kids who really dreaded going to school or didn't go at all, frankly. She provided a token economy system, a reward system for those kids to do the learning behaviors and peer behaviors that will really help them grow and to learn. She's now working with 1,300 kids in the local area, and we're helping her with their inventory system because she manages 30,000 items a year. We're helping to build a business and replication model at Social Venture Partners. And that's done, again, by our partners, by a guy named Phil, who is a young father, an MBA, who also works in the in the wealth management industry. And it's tough right now. You all know it's not a great time to be a financial advisor, I suppose. But he wants to focus on what matters, and that's his family and giving back. And that's what we do at Social Venture Partners. By doing it together, by seizing on the inspirations that we come across, we are transforming organizations, transforming this community, and I think most importantly, transforming the partners. The partners themselves are being transformed by these experiences. And that's why I'm so excited to be in the nonprofit industry, because there are many hopes, many challenges in this world, more than ever, more challenges and hopes than we can imagine. But philanthropy, nonprofit, is really the intersection of those hopes and challenges. It's where it all comes together. And we at Social Venture Partners in the nonprofit community do work at the heart of that. Someone suggested to me that the nonprofit sector may actually be the WPA of our generation. Those of you who are familiar, the WPA years ago helped to transform our country in a time when the economy was just really in trouble. And I say that because the nonprofit community has been transforming this country for years. And we see the fruits of that transformation in the tamales and applesauce, I like to say, from after hearing the stories. Rodolfo told me a story about working with Hispanic youth at Madison High School, and they wanted to do something for the homeless for Thanksgiving, much like he did many years ago. They made tamales in the Mexican tradition for their neighbors, for the homeless. And while he doesn't work with them anymore, they called him recently and said, Rodolfo, we're going to do this for the folks, right? We loved it. They want to give back, and that inspiration is continuing to transform their lives and the lives of others. And Katy talked about the mom of 4 kids whose kids didn't want to come at first, but now share recipes for applesauce. So it's about applesauce and tamales out there. It's about transformation in the organizations and donors, the volunteers, and the lives of the people that each one of us touches. So perhaps this recession, we'll call it a recession, I think it's official now, right? Perhaps this recession is really about the basics, figuring out what's core in our lives and in this community and in this country. I think we all know there's been rampant consumerism, wild amounts of private and public debt. We all know about our addiction to cars and gasoline. But is that who we are? Is that what's core to our country? If not, what is? What do we do? I'm not suggesting that we ignore reality. I think you should read the news. If you really can take it, you should read your stock portfolios, although I don't recommend the daily diet of that. It's really about aligning our inspirations, giving life to our inspirations, aligning those with our intentions, and ultimately acting in the world. What seeds are you planting? Ask yourself. What is core for you, and what do you do about it? It really just starts with one step. SVP takes folks when they sort of look up for the first time maybe, or really want to do something to give back in the world. Polly says it just takes paying attention to one kid. Give one kid who needs it a little bit of attention, and you will transform their lives. You can work with Solve or Portland Impact or Hands on Portland or any number of other organizations. You can get on the back of a pickup truck and rally your neighbors. But ultimately, it's about this: recognizing your inspirations, setting your intentions to do right in the world, and acting on it. I joked about this speech being aspiration and perspiration, but that's actually what the world is really about. It's about aspiring to do something amazing in the world and working hard to get there. This is where transformation happens. It's where Mount Hood gets saved, and Fruit and the community and the hungry come together. It's where youth are mentored. It's what's at our core as a country. I think it's what's at the core of each and every person here. And it will transform our economy and our world despite all the bad news. If only we live out of our inspiration and not our desperation. Thank you. Now, I think I'm supposed to answer questions here for a minute, but I think you want to ask the questions first? Okay, thanks. Thank you for that direction. So I had the privilege, as I said, of spending a little time with each of these folks and have some questions I hope that will be interesting to all of you, but really also tap into some of the richness that I learned about from each of these people. So I want to ask first, Rodolfo, if I can put you on the firing line first. What has been the most rewarding part of the work that you do at Pear and throughout your life and the work you've done?
Okay, so there's so much. There really is so much. But I think back to a time when I felt very lost, and I believe that was a matter of a lack of identity. And so to have been blessed and find the traditions that have helped bring me that guidance has been a personal accomplishment. But to be able to share it with the young people, to be able to help them identify their ancestry and who they are at the moment. I always say that if you know who you are, then no one can tell you who you are. And so I feel like giving back ceremony, giving them back their history through the art, giving them back their identity has been a very powerful thing in my life.
Thank you. So I'll go to Katy. I'll sort of skip around a little bit and let them breathe one time to another. Katy, what would you say is the real genius of the Portland Fruit Tree Project?
The real genius. I can tell you what I think really resonates with people. I think there are so many ways that this project has seemed to have an impact in people's lives. And I think that's really where where I guess the genius lies, is where we really are affecting people and making positive change. I think the obvious thing is connecting people to a resource that's going to waste, and that may be a nuisance to the tree owner or their neighbor when it lays on the ground, but to other people that's really, solid gold, healthy food to put on the table for your family is incredibly valuable, beyond measure for many people. But beyond that, we found that people coming together for a common goal, basically coming together on an afternoon or a morning, a group of 12 to 15 people harvesting fruit together, people from all different backgrounds. We've had an incredibly diverse array of people participating in our harvesting parties and our workshops. And just seeing the incredible community building that happens, seeing people make connections that they wouldn't have otherwise made with other people in their neighborhoods, knowing that they can come back to this tree year after year in their neighborhood and know that, every fall they can have Brayburn apples from Sarah's tree is really incredible and really empowering. And then seeing people come back not only for harvesting, but also to come back to our workshops and learn how to, help their neighbors take care of their trees, or learn how to preserve the food to make it last throughout the year, has been really incredible. And then seeing people really kind of start to make the connection of where food comes from. A lot of people who come out and pick fruit with us haven't ever picked fruit before. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard, "Oh, you can eat that?" And just having people start to make that connection of food is not something that we have to necessarily buy. I mean, the land, we're blessed with a really productive land underneath this city, and there's so much potential for people to grow their own food here, and for people to make that connection personally, but also kind of in a community sense, and say, hey, this is something that we can do. We can empower ourselves, work together to grow food, to harvest it, to take some home, and to make it available to folks who need it most. Has been really incredible. So,
see, that was a genius. There you go. I've already registered my cherry tree. So I want to ask Amy. I heard an incredible story from Amy and didn't get to kind of use it, but I think it's even more special to have her talk about it. An extraordinary woman that she's known and connected to in her work, a woman named Kate McCarthy. So can you tell us what you've learned from Kate McCarthy?
Yeah, I've learned a lot from Kate. Kate McCarthy is a 91-year-old woman who has lived on the mountain her whole life and has just amazing stories from living up there. And she's one of these activists that just has credibility you can't get you can't get at all anymore. I mean, it's just amazing. And the thing that I think about a lot when I think about Kate is she really found something that was something she could get excited about and stay excited about and stay effective. And it's one thing to have a woman who has watched a meadow turn into a ski resort, but what Kate identified is that she loved to take photographs of the mountain. And over the years, she's photographed these tales that she brings down to us and brings to her legislators and brings to groups of people and inspires them to join her in her work. And it's such a great reminder that we all have these skills and talents in us. And if we find the passion to use them, they're so effective. And so I think about her a lot as I've been thinking about this idea to bring artists out there and get them engaged in some of these issues. Thank you.
She makes me want to go visit Kate. So I'm going to both ask the question and speak for Polly, per her request. If I were to ask Polly, what's so rewarding about your work, she might respond. The baby steps that she sees in so many youth out there of that first interview and really acing that interview, or even just acing that question, of connecting to somebody in a way that maybe they had not before because they've either been, not been inspired or trusted, or I'm not saying this as well as Polly would, but but empowered in this way, in the way that Polly's able to do it. And when they get a job and they're proud of themselves, it is a moment for Polly to shine as well. I think that's what she would say is most rewarding. Right, Polly? Yeah, if you could say that. Yeah. So I want to ask, I'm going to go back to Amy and ask why your work in the nonprofit sector in Portland has been so rewarding.
Because you get to do stuff. I mean that honestly. I started, a number of years ago, I was working in election work and doing some of my advocacy work that way, and there are some amazingly smart, motivated people who run elections in our country, and they're an inspiration themselves. But, the goal was to get to D.C. and to think. And they do a lot of good work there, but ultimately what I wanted to do was be on the ground and actually getting stuff done. And I think that in Portland, what's really exciting to me is that we have a really scrappy environment here. We expect our nonprofits and our agencies to be working together and be resourceful and really get down to what is the core need that you're trying to provide and provide that and not make it fancy. And I really appreciate that. I think it fits my style, and I think it's real.
And very Portland. Yeah. I hesitate asking this next question, but I think it's part of the real beauty and gem of Rodolfo. But I asked him earlier if I could ask him the question of what are the fruits of humility, because he speaks so eloquently and really just carries within him a deep sense of humility, and I'd love him to share that message with you. So Rodolfo.
Thank you. So I'd love to give a little background on that. I come from a very poor family and a lot of hardship, being the son of an immigrant family, poverty, abuse, violence, kind of takes away from a parent's ability to teach those core lessons to their kids. And I feel like it really was, the spirits that were speaking to me and telling me, guiding me in this direction, because my parents were just too busy for that kind of thing. But every day they worked their 2 jobs, and every day my grandmother took care of all the grandkids, even though she should have been retired. I saw it all around me in my community and my family. And I carried that with me to that story at the boys' home, because I think that's what probably inspired me to do that. Never had anybody even tell me what a soup kitchen was before that point. And I took that with me to the Marine Corps, where I try to tough it out, try to muscle it, and use my pride, and backfired. I used to get into so much trouble. It was just ridiculous. But then one day, a man, my superior at the time, told me, just remember, you never ask anybody to do something you're not willing to do. And again, that was the saving grace for me that got me through it all. Still didn't make that many friends, but at least I was respected and because of that promoted a few times. I kind of felt a little lost, I think, after the Marine Corps, and it was finding that humility. It was hitting kind of my rock bottom, feeling that emptiness, that loneliness that got me to come down and get down on my knees and actually pray for that humility that guided me to that, and say, as much as I knew anything about spirituality at the time, I remembered when I was a little boy, an altar boy, the whole kneeling thing. So I was like, that's a good start. And I did just that. And shortly after, I met an amazing man who started to teach me about these old ways. And the first thing that he told me was, the people come first. If you're going to be one of these people, if you're aspiring to be a sun dancer, to be a leader in the community, then the people should always come first. And to this day, I try my best, but I'm human too, and sometimes it's hard, but I try to always remember that the people come first.
Portland Fruit Tree Project has just gotten together with another organization and earned their 501c3 status that will allow them to grow as an organization. So I wanted to ask Katy, as you're sort of poised for growth now, you've got this thing together, what sort of challenges do you face now? What's on the horizon, and what are your needs as an organization?
I want to thank you for that question because, sincerely, because I think looking towards the future and the possibilities to come is really a source of inspiration for all of us who are making this project happen. So yeah, as Mark mentioned, we just got our 501c3 status this summer. Up until then, we were working as an all-volunteer, really grassroots project. We started in the summer of 2006, just in one neighborhood, and since then, in just 2.5 short years, we've grown a lot. To what Richard mentioned, we harvested over 4,000, I think it was like 4,600 pounds of fruit this year, and engaged about 200 volunteers. I think 78 some trees were harvested. But we had incredibly long waiting lists for all of our programs, way more trees, way more participants or volunteers who wanted to participate than we had capacity for this year. So that's been incredibly encouraging for us, just demonstrating that we're really hitting on a real need in our community and something that people really want to get involved with, not only one time, but people wanting to come back time and time again. So looking towards the future, we're basically focusing this winter on some strategic planning, some leadership development among our volunteers, a big fundraising plan basically so we can expand our capacity for next year, doubling all of our program offerings and hopefully, continuing to double that for years to come until we're reaching the needs, until those, waiting lists get smaller. But we have some other big goals for the future. I mean, basically, the real inspiration behind this project is to create kind of community networks of resource and knowledge sharing so that people can be empowered to take advantage not only of the existing resources, but food being a regenerative resource, one that can be planted and grown and cultivated, and that every year, hopefully, there will be more and more food, not only into people's hands, but in this city as more trees are planted. So we're really hoping to create a tree planting program in the coming year, partnering with other organizations to create community orchards. And I could go on and on about our future plans, but I'd be happy to talk to anyone in more detail about it later.
Any finance and accounting people out there too? She said she needs one for her board, so they're the true picture of need for capacity development, because they have way more volunteers than they can use, and they have way more trees registered than they can pick. So they're the bottleneck in the middle that needs their capacity developed. Lastly, I would ask Polly, if I were over here asking Polly, what can people do to help? Polly might respond. Tonight, Urban Opportunities has a fundraiser at Albina Press at 7 p.m. And there's jazz music and beer and wine and liquor and lots of fun over there. Albina Press at 7 p.m. and it's $20 to get in. So that's what Polly would say to plug Urban Opportunities. They need every dollar to really help these kids get jobs. Thanks, guys.
Mark, thanks for your fascinating talk, and thanks to the Skidmore Prize winners as well. And now we're going to move on to the question and answer format of our program. Our first question for the speakers will be from today's board host, Leslie Moorhead. Leslie is a consultant who provides financial management services for small businesses. She's been a longtime City Club member. She's on the Agri Committee and is currently on her 5th year, the Research Board. She was the research advisor for the club's initiative and referendum study, and also received the club's Research Award in 2007. Leslie.
Thank you, Don. I want to ask Mark a big picture question because I very recently haven't been able to look at any young people without wanting to run up to them and giving them a hug or a handshake for their role in electing Barack Obama as the next president of the United States. So thank you all for being a big part of this continuing wonderful future we have in this country. So the big picture question is, we are facing a new administration and changes around the country in terms of control at all political levels, federal, state, and local. So what do you anticipate to be the effect of the Obama administration on philanthropy in general and any of these organizations in specific?
Thanks for that question. I think the important thing to remember is that Obama's message was not, yes, I can, but yes, we can. And in his acceptance or his victory speech, he said, you know, I can't do this alone. We need to do this together. And I think we all hopefully will really take that to heart. I think the effect on philanthropy, I mean, I guess I had the experience the day after the election of having such great hope and walking out, and I work in the Old Town neighborhood, and still seeing people on the street who needed a meal, who needed a roof over their head, who needed warm clothes, and it was a little depressing. And I joked that I went from sort of the anxiety about the election to a whole new anxiety about being able to pull it off, and I had only momentary sort of euphoric bliss. But I do think that the more and more that we see that our administration and our country is headed in the right direction, that people will rally behind that. And I think the beautiful thing about Obama, whether you politically disagree or not, is that he is a person who sits down and will bring people together. And I think call on each one of us. I've just sort of been yearning for someone to sort of sit at the desk in front of the TV and say, this is what I need from you. I need you to, give this much more. I need you to go and work in this thing. Despite the Iraq War, we were sort of never asked to tighten the belt. We just sort of kept, putting more clothes in Macy's and adding more debt to our credit card. And I really feel like people want that and need that. And I'm seeing in social venture partners that the interest in leveraged philanthropy and doing more with your money and by volunteering and by bringing all these extra resources really is a call that people want right now. When you have less, you want to do more with your philanthropy. And that's a trend that's just really sweeping the country. It's not just the social venture partners thing. It's really a trend that's all over the place and across all generations. We're a multi-generational organization, and we're almost even in terms of retirees and young people. And it's an exciting thing to watch. So thanks for the question.
We'll now take questions from the floor, and questions may be directed towards our speaker, Mark, or any one of the 4 Skidmore Prize Award winners. Asking questions at Friday Forums is a privilege of City Club members, and when you ask your question, please identify yourself, and remember that a synonym for question is inquiry rather than speech or presentation. So please limit your question to 30 seconds or less. First question will be Ted Kay, our City Club treasurer.
Thank you. Ted Kay, City Club member. I'd like to ask a question of each of our Skidmore Awardees as a way to help you tell us more about your aspirations for your organization. I'm sorry it's only a hypothetical question, but if your organization were to receive an unanticipated one-time check for $100,000, how would each of you spend it in your organization?
Speech lessons, first and foremost.
I hope it wouldn't take $100,000 to get you to speak.
No, she's really scared. It might take 100,000.
So I'd like to say, with PAIR, there is definitely a plan to just make the program more solid, to really develop what we've got and work with the kids that we're working with. I know most folks are talking about going national, going big, and I think we're really more about really doing what we do well and spending more time with those kids. As a person that focuses on resources, I guess I would say I'm always having to go to outside sources for monies to try to help them with rent or any kind of assistance. So I guess I just really like to give it all to the kids, but of course an organization requires much more than that. So I would definitely want to just work that out with my team.
That's a really big question, and like my brain's already spinning actually in circles just even thinking about something like that. I think that for BARC's work right now, we're really focused on the restoration possibilities in Mount Hood. We have been offered the burden of decades of mismanagement in our drinking watershed, and we feel very strongly that right now Mount Hood needs to have a whole new direction for its management that's focused on drinking water and includes encouraging good access to recreation opportunities. And I think if I had say over money like that, I'd like to see an investment being put into training, out of work, logging families to start doing the restoration work that we need of them right now. They're the people that know the forest better than anyone, and they deserve to be out there. And I'd like to see that happen, so.
As I mentioned before, we're really working to build our capacity, so we would definitely use $100,000 as wisely as we possibly could to make it go as far as we could. We have right now, as the only paid staff, I'm actually only officially on part-time, though I work way more than that. So we would basically create a couple staff positions, have a full-time executive director, and probably an arborist. That's kind of in our plan for a couple years out, is to bring on someone who's really an expert in fruit tree care to jumpstart our orchard planting program, and also do a fee-for-service pruning program that would have sliding scale fee for folks who can't afford it. It can be free, and for those that can, it could somehow subsidize others. And bring on equipment. I mean, we're basically working out of a really small office with no real equipment, so we'd probably buy a pickup truck and a bunch of harvesting tools and a chipper shredder to, turn those tree limbs into mulch. And I can give you a whole list of very specific things that I have in the back of my mind of one day we'll have that. So, yeah.
Kurt Wabering, member. City Club has a program called Citizen Read, and they're going to be planning what to do for the next year. So my question to you is there an author or a book that you would tell them, you've got to read this?
Moby Dick. It's all about getting to a goal.
Is the program for older or younger?
It's for City Club members.
Oh, it's for City Club members. I'm sorry. I thought it was
They should read it twice.
an outreach. What's that?
They should read it twice.
Oh, read it twice then, she says.
I guess something that I became aware of was that a lot of our traditions are oral. I mean, there's a lot of books out there written by folks that I'm sure are great, but a lot of these, the virtues, really similar to like the commandments or the Eightfold Path, these old ways were sent to us for guidance. And so I say just go back to those things that make you feel whole and spiritual, and learn from those again if we need to. Constantly learning lessons and constantly meditating over the same thoughts. There's never a time to stop.
I would respond that there's an amazing new book by a woman named Leslie Crutchfield and another author I can't think of. That's sort of it's not a companion, but it's a similar book as the Good to Great work that Jim Collins has done. And this book is called Forces for Good. And it looks at the nonprofit sector and some of the most successful organizations and nonprofits in the last 50 years and tried to analyze and figure out what have been the most important forces for those to be really successful. And they're not the things you might think about. The actual forces are things like build on market forces and have shared leadership, rather than things like have a really great idea and perfect management and an amazing strategic plan. It's a really fascinating book, especially for anyone who likes management issues or nonprofit, and I think is a good read for anybody right now.
I'd like to say something. Oh, yes. I just like to say the paper. I just want the paper to keep being around. So maybe not a book, but just keep reading the newspapers and make sure they don't go away.
Hi, I'm Joanne Lee from Stoll Reeve. So Moby Dick is a great segue into my question. What is the greatest obstacle or roadblock you've encountered along your journey in turning your visions into reality? Where did you find the inspiration, the strength, the resources, and the faith to keep going and not give up, and what did you learn along the way?
There have definitely been a lot of challenges. I'd say for me, actually, my biggest challenge has been, I mentioned the steep learning curve that my mentor, Deb Lippold, has really helped with. And I think as a young person with not a huge amount of experience in either the business or the nonprofit world, I've had a couple years of experience in the nonprofit world, but not in the kind of management or fundraising or anything like that. So my biggest challenge has really been with every little step having to learn so much. And the most incredible thing in addressing that challenge has been having the opportunity to take those questions to people in the community who have that knowledge and have that experience. And I mean, it's just been such an amazing journey of meeting different people and hearing their stories and hearing the different ways that people have started projects from the ground up, or, you know, just made their visions a reality, and just, you know, looking to the community as, you know, such a valuable resource and just, you know, a wealth of knowledge, and, you know, so many people who are so willing to share what they know and share ideas for how you can, you know, tackle a particular thing, or a, you know, larger approach to how you're going to run your organization. You know, things like that have been really incredible.
So before I started working with PAIR, I was working with Latino youth, and one of the biggest projects I did before I left was also working with families in regards to the immigration raids. Sometimes I felt like I was trying to do a job with my hands tied behind my back, very limited resources out there, no education unless you're willing to pay out-of-state taxes or things of that sort, employment. I remember seeing a really sad image of a mother of several children with an anklet, like she was a criminal. That was very heartbreaking. But I always remembered that I can't take this on by myself. And so that's why we did the forum. We brought together leaders from several schools and communities to help talk to the parents, talk to the high school students, the middle school students, and let them talk about this and share the resources that we did have together. Same thing applies with any population. There's going to be struggles and challenges. So what I've done, I guess, was just really leaning on my community and remembering the lessons and the sacrifices, and really just watching my Uncle John, the way he's been so selfless, and he has hardly anything, yet so many people know his name. The medicine man in South Dakota, who's almost a broken man, but he's still doing the things that he does. And so I've had these great examples to follow, and great people to fight this struggle with me.
We've run out of time today, and we're going to have to stop. Please join us on December 5th for Congressman Earl Blumenauer. And as we close, I'd like to express our thanks to all our speakers today for the Skidmore Prize ceremony, Richard Meeker and Ted Wheeler and Mark Holloway. And let's offer a special round of applause to our Skidmore Prize winners, Polly Bangs, Amy Harwood, Katy Kolker, and Rodolfo Serna. Thank you. We're adjourned. Have a happy Thanksgiving.